We have a quick video to introduce our speakers. Before I play that, let me just say we are going to have a Q&A with our speakers. We do just ask everyone keep it respectful and maintain decorum. And then we do have a couple of mics that are going to be going around that we will have you speak into for the recording.
In state leadership in the United States of America, in every state where people have been falsely indicted, President Trump and others, there are 2 state legislators who have stepped forward to take the heat to say this is not right, we are not going to stand for this, we're not going to sit by, and they are in this room right now. They are on this panel, right here.
We're talking about what is going on in the state of Georgia right now, and it's horrendous. We all see it. 18 people and Donald Trump have been indicted for expressing their First Amendment rights to question the integrity of an election.
We are fighting for our First Amendment rights. All rights come from God, the cornerstone of America. And it's very disconcerting that people are not listening to what Colton and I are trying to do to remove a rogue DA in the state of Georgia. We are in a war, folks.
What I'm fighting for is ancient, and that's why some folks are calling me the Rhino Wrangler, and you too, Charlize, because our job is to encourage these representatives and these senators to begin to take action. The first step they could do is they could sign on and call for a special session. We've got one of the most powerful tools of all. You get to thinking what can be done. Well, the first thing is we can defund Fonnie Willis of the $3.5 million in taxpayer funds, you and I's hard-earned tax dollars that are funding this type of rogue prosecution. It's a rogue communist domestic threat to our Constitution, Fonnie Willis. You know, I want to defund Fonnie Willis of the $3.5 million that she receives in taxpayer funds, and people say, well, that's not a lot of money. But for Northwest Georgia, in my district, it is a lot of money, especially when our district attorney has a triage of cases himself, and he can't find attorneys to prosecute those cases. Why can't he? Because they're working in Fulton County and these other metropolis counties because they have so much money, they're able to outbid him in Northwest Georgia. She's got too much money. That's what she's got. It's funny, I've been kicked out of the majority caucus, but I don't call them the Republican caucus. Well, they're rhinos. You're about to have a young hillbilly come off the mountain, and he's about to stir some stuff up. GOPs across the state are sending out a unanimous decision to support our efforts for a special session. And this is the first time I remember where you had metropolis GOPs in rural counties and coastal Georgia all singing the same tune.
They want the special session, and no one is listening to them. They are even doing resolutions at their meetings. I'm not sure why those people in leadership under the Gold Dome are not listening to we the people.
Citizens demand accountability. Hope to have had that in the election, but unfortunately the election has shown itself to be fraudulent. And so then their second round of accountability is dependent on their legislators taking action. You know, we're far beyond now just an election being stolen. Now we're taking political prisoners. And the precedent that sets extremely dangerous. When you have attorneys who are being charged, facing the rest of their life in jail, how do other attorneys in the state reconcile that? People look at Washington, D.C. and they think, oh, the communist takeover is just in D.C. But Charlize, it's here. It's in Atlanta. It's within the Senate chamber.
People are scared to speak out now, which is what they want us to do since January the 6th. And if you can indict a former president and 18 others, it's only a matter of time before they come after you and me and everybody else in the state of Georgia.
I hope you will join us in becoming a rhino wrangler. But if that rhino gets away from you, well, you can always run for their seat. So I would encourage you to think about it, pray about it, talk to your friends and family about it, and if we can be of any help to you, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Continue to call your state senators, your state representatives, write letters, do op-eds to the newspaper. The more action people engage, the more things will happen at the Capitol.
Yeehaw!
So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to our speakers now because I think that did a lot better job introducing them than I could. I will just say Mallory Staples is our first speaker. She is the Executive Director of the Georgia State Freedom Caucus.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Great job, Ty. That is truthful and hilarious all at the same time, which is really nice when you can infuse this fight we're in with some humor. It is much appreciated. You know, when I got into this, I came off of a federal run. So I had run for Congress, and I knew something, like you guys, I was just a citizen. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly how to fix it. But I knew I couldn't sit and just watch, and text and be on these threads and be like, this is outrageous, and then like go back to my life. So I ran for Congress, and I had to kind of drill down as a regular everyday citizen on like, how do you actually fix that stuff? So when I got this job, I didn't know a ton about state politics. I mean, I think most people don't. Like when I travel around and talk to folks, everybody's on a similar learning curve for the most part. It's been over the past like 3 or 4 years that we've all been like, holy Toledo, how does this work? We know it's broken. How do we fix it? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember the very first day of my job, I was actually in DC for a training, and I was talking to my 2 bosses. And I said, and this was when Speaker Ralston was still alive. He had not passed away yet. And I just said, we have this really powerful speaker who's been there like 100 years or something. Like he's been there forever, and he's really powerful. And they were like, I'm sure rolling their eyes thinking, I know, honey. And they were like, he's actually the most powerful speaker in all 50 states. And I was like, Shazam. That's awful. You want to talk about a bottleneck. Like if you think about an hourglass, and at the top of the hourglass are all the issues and concerns and appropriation and legislation and all the things citizens want to have happen. And it funnels down in Georgia into this bottleneck of the Speaker of the House. And nothing's going to happen unless it gets the okay. That is a problem. You don't have to be a political science major or master to know that that is troubling. That is troubling for the people, for the constituents, yes? So I go down there, and I'm kind of like that kid in class that asked all the stupid questions, and you're like, oh my God, I wish they'd just be quiet. Please be quiet. Because it was all new to me. I was watching it with fresh eyes, which I think is vital and important, and why that video Colton addressed, hey, you guys think about running. Because fresh eyes, having a new filter, whether it's how you run your business operations, whether it's teachers in the classroom, certainly in governance, is a good thing. You want timely principles, but you want fresh perspective to be sure. Because if it's the same pot and the same people all the time and everything's done the same way, that is not good for the citizens. And government is here to serve the citizens. So things that aren't good for citizens need to be reformed. So I remember sitting in the gallery with our legislative director, Blake, who's not here, who's literally the smartest person I know, and unfortunately for him, received all of my dumb questions. And they're talking, and somebody's like, oh yeah, this is just an example. It's like, oh, that's one of the governor's floor leaders. And I'm like, oh, okay, how many are there? Okay, what do they do? And how do you become a governor's floor? What does that mean? Sounds very prestigious, like class pet or something. Like, wow, that's a nice title. And as they're talking, I'm like, so wait a second. So the governor, who is in the executive branch and arguably the most powerful person in the state, of every state, the governor's the most powerful person. I was like, who are these people in the legislative branch? And they were like, oh, well, they represent the governor's agenda. I'm like, okay, it's great. Every governor has an agenda. No biggie. That's fine. And I'm like, okay, so that seems odd to me. I'm a registered lobbyist. The governor would essentially have, from the executive branch, his own personal lobbyists in both chambers of the legislative branch. And again, dumb question 4700. I was like, well, so what happens if the person who's a governor's floor leader, who campaigned, ran on certain things to his 200,000 constituents, what happens if what the governor's agenda requires is in conflict with what his constituents or her constituents want? What happens? How do they vote? And they were like, well, it's, vote by vote, issue by issue. But you do lose your position as the governor's floor leader if you do not lead for the governor. I mean, again, it's not complicated. So it's things like that I was listening and I'm like, we've got a problem. Like I knew with the most powerful speaker thing, we were not in great shape. And Speaker Ralston passed and we were elected a new speaker. And you would think at that point, that would be like an amazing time to reform the rules and kind of how things go. But that is not what happened in the House. That is not what happened. And interestingly, and if Blake was here, he could tell you the exact number, they actually legislated more authority to the speaker, which fascinatingly, he did not abuse, which was shocking. But that mindset is not healthy for us, for the voters, right? We had an opportunity to distribute the power more evenly, and it wasn't taken. It wasn't taken. Actually, the opposite happened. So it's really vital at this point, and everyone so far has attested to it, and I think everyone in the room would agree, we are in trouble. We are in trouble. I mean, if you can read, you're aware that we're in trouble. And, you know, when I ran for Congress, one of the things I always said, and because I firmly believe it, and I still believe it today, is the people are always the answer. The people are always the answer. You know, Ronald Reagan said the 9 scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That's just kind of what we need to get back to. You know, I testified at the Senate subcommittee meeting and Senate committee meeting on a mental health bill, and I said, okay, you guys as Republicans, you should be pushing solving problems, which there are, into the private sector. You should not be growing the government. You should not be doing that. And the Freedom Caucus has some very simple metrics, and I'm going to tell you what they are. Actually, it was hilarious. I was speaking in DeKalb County, and former Representative Melvin Everson was there, and I had met him right before I was talking. He's an amazing man, actually. Just was able to celebrate his birthday, him and another good friend, but great man. And I met him and we clicked and we hit it off, and then I was speaking, and when I was talking about the metrics for the Freedom Caucus, like how we judge bills, whether they're good or bad, which is very simple, and I'm going to share them with you, he was coming out of his seat, and so I was like, Melvin, what you got? And he was like, oh my gosh. And Charlize was here for some of that when she served alongside him. He said, those metrics that you guys use are what we, as the Republican Party, as a whole, that's what we used to use. All of us, not the far right Freedom Caucus, but everybody with an R behind their name. And it's if a bill grows government, if it increases regulation, if it raises taxes or infringes on personal freedom, it's a no from us. Amen. And Melvin said, we used to use that, and we'd go through every bill, and it had a little name, the group, right? 216. He said, and then we'd all join together and pray, and we'd go out on the floor and vote accordingly. And I was like, come, Lord Jesus, we need revival. We need that again. That is amazing. And he was like, yeah, that used to be normal. And so when I watched from the gallery as the majority of the Republicans voted to increase, Medicaid spending, student loan forgiveness, that board lights up almost solid green, both sides, I thought, is it me or do we have a problem? But it's okay to have a problem if you have a solution. And you guys are the solution. Charlie Spurd is the solution. Colton Moore is the solution. And that's a good day, because it can get heavy. What we're living in can get very, very heavy. And so I just want to encourage you guys to stay the course. Cherokee is on fire. You guys don't just show up, you do. And we need doers. So I'm going to pass it off to my good friend and fearless, or do you want, James, you want to jump in? You want to introduce? Okay, I'm going to pass off to my other good friend, James.
You can introduce him. I was just going to say, you have raised our relative amount of doing by moving to Cherokee. I just went.
Thank you. I I mean, I do feel like there was a spiritual cleansing that took place when I moved out of Fulton County and came over here to live with you guys. I'm not gonna lie, I'm so happy to be here. It's just I met a couple more people this morning, and y'all are the real deal. And we genuinely are honored to be here. It's sincere when we say that. It really is an honor to give your voice volume. So, love you guys, and I'm gonna pass it off to Colton.
Thank you, Mallory. Mallory and I, you ever had one of those days that just started like 2 days ago? That's about where Mallory and I are today. We've got about 10 hours of driving ahead of us, speaking at GOP meetings across the state over the last week and into the next one. So what I love about traversing the state is finding different niche groups of hardcore conservatives. And let me tell you what, Cherokee County is one of those hardcore groups. I was speaking in Augusta last week, and some folks said, my goodness, I thought we were just this minority of people who thought the election was stolen and that Fani Willis was doing something wrong. And I said, no, you're a majority. Most Republicans across the state agree with you. Mallory was talking about the governor being the most powerful person. I personally think Fani Willis is the most powerful person in our state right now, and she's not of the Republican Party. She is the enemy, the Democrat, the communist, the fascist. The ones they try to label us as fascist, her actions are fascist. And I say that she's the most powerful person. Why? Because she has got enough power to chill the voices of some of the most powerful Republicans in our state. When you have the president pro tem of the Senate saying we can do nothing until after this case has been adjudicated, and I have to tell him, take off your litigator cap and put on your senator cap and recognize that we in the Senate have all the oversight authority, right? Just like they do in the House. We control the money. We control how the law is made that she is supposedly representing. But yet, for so many, they're blinded to the situation that we're in. Look at how ridiculous it's gotten. David Schaefer, one of the indicted, right? What is he charged with? Impersonating a public officer. Okay, so then get this. The prosecutor, they get to looking around. Has he signed his oath to the Constitution? No. So the prosecutor is guilty of impersonating a public officer, and he's charged someone who's innocent of impersonating a public officer. That's how ridiculous this case is. And for these Republicans not to be able to see that and recognize that our tax dollars are being used to take on political prisoners, very scary time. Very scary time. But you see a lot of these GOP, you see people getting engaged in politics that have never been engaged in politics. And I've always said that people don't get engaged in politics until government affects them in some way. Right? They're sick of paying too much taxes. They're tired of not getting police service. They don't like what the schools are teaching their kids. That's when people start entering the fray of politics. So I would encourage you to ask your elected officials, where do you draw a line in the sand? When is it too much? When is the infringement upon our freedoms too much? And for me, that line has been crossed a long way back. And I hope it is for you. We are the last place on earth, the last place that has freedom of speech. And we are some rowdy Georgians. I had a Vietnam veteran who donated to my campaign from Oregon. And he said, I served with a bunch of rowdy Georgians. He said, and you kind of remind me of some of those rowdy Georgians. He said, anything that was in their way that was a threat, they annihilated it. He said, and Fani Willis is a threat to our country. She's a threat to our state. And we must legislatively annihilate what she's doing. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'm sure there are a lot. So I hope there is.
Thank you, Senator Moore. Thank you, Mallory. Let's give them one more round of applause. And like Ty said, we have a couple of mics that we're going to be passing around. Just one more final reminder, let's just keep everything Nice and respectful, please.
Yes, my name's Tommy Moon, and one thing I listened to both you and Mallory express is the powerful people. We've got powerful people on state level, we've got powerful people federal level. Who are they and what is their email address? If you could compile us a list, not of all, just the most powerful people and their email address, we can take it from there. We can email them. We can, all over this whole state, all over this whole country, everybody right here is upset about the same thing. But what are you doing about it? Please, get us a list of those people and allow us to let them know what we think.
Yes, sir. That is how it's done. That literally is how it's done. So the Georgia Freedom Caucus, as well as myself, we have Substacks. And everything we've published is on there. And so throughout session, those newsletters drop like multiple times a week. Right now, it's a little bit slower, but we do calls to action, exactly what you're talking about, as well as kind of summarize the major bills. I mean, I think the House voted on some 250 bills, so we don't belabor you with all of that, but we know you don't have time to read all of the big things, so we summarize them, and then we'll say, this is the committee chairman, you know, these are the folks that are sitting on this committee, this is who you need to call. The other thing is, that we educate you guys on, we had a day down at the Capitol where we had grassroots people flew in from Chatham County and South Georgia and drove in and North Georgia to come learn how to wield your power as a citizen most effectively, because when bills are in their conceptual stage is when you have the greatest voice. So we want you guys to get involved when bills are coming through committee and come to those meetings and call the folks and email at that point. So we try and educate. Again, that was my experience. Somebody took the time to educate me. I want to pay it forward. That's a large part of like what we do and what our presence here in Georgia is to educate you guys. So if you go to Substack, you can look back. They're all there, and you will see who the power players are based on our calls to action. Their phone numbers are there, their emails are there, and that is what you need to be doing as citizens. Yes, sir. Okay. Substack is an app, so you would want to download that. There's a lot of great content on Substack. It's relatively new and a little bit more kind of up and coming. I mean, not that I'm like some big tech person, but anyway, it is a great place. It's like a digital library. And so I put stuff up there all the time. I put content from our speaking. Like I flew down to Chatham County day before yesterday and spoke to a big group. I'll be uploading on my Substack the video from that, the video from this. You know, we just put a lot of content out there. And the Freedom Caucus and myself, we each have a Substack.
A second. Also, if anybody who hasn't signed the petition to investigate the District Attorney Fannie Willis we have over there, make sure you sign before you leave here. We got 1,000, but our goal now is 2,000 until our representatives get the message. We will keep going and get more and more. So please do that. Also, what I want to say, ask you guys, I will have a question. You know what happened with what is going on with House Speaker. We have been calling, we have been emailing. It's not working. So I wonder if that is the national level. In the local level is the same thing. They are not listening. They don't listen to the people. I don't understand why and how we can make them understand. We are not their enemies. We just want them to do what we want, not what they think is right, what they think they need to do is what we want them to do. And I don't know how to get the message. I said maybe a video, maybe something up. But do you have a different approach that we could get besides this 2,000, 10,000 until they get the message? How can we get them?
Yeah, there's many ways to apply political pressure. I mean, I think every elected official in the Georgia legislature ought to have some type of opponent. Just having an opponent, to someone to hold them accountable. The worst thing you can have is someone who's been elected to office without any type of challenger for multiple terms. Because they become so disconnected with the party, they become so disconnected with the people, and then they become even harder to get in touch with. They become even harder to influence. So I would encourage you to run for office if you can. And if you don't want to run for office, start showing up at the Capitol. Show up at the Gold Dome. A lot of these representatives, the only people they interact with all day long are lobbyists. Lobbyists who have millions of dollars behind them who are influencing them, right? And they're more worried about what type of shrimp prawns they're going to eat for dinner and not about, the legislation that they're voting on that day. And you are very blessed to be very quick back and forth to the Capitol. I mean, my constituents have to drive 3 hours in some cases to get to the Capitol. You can run down there in an hour if you had to one morning. So I would encourage you to come down to the Capitol. Also consider volunteering more hours, knocking doors. When you start knocking doors and going up just to members in your own community and talking to your neighbors, that's how it's done. Or else you're going to let these millions of dollars of influence take over everything. Look at the border, right? Think about this. We have a border crisis. Okay, Governor Abbott shuts the border down for 4 days during COVID with vehicle inspections. Every vehicle coming across the border. Shut down the economy with Mexico. Within 4 days, all the province governors of Mexico were calling him up. Hey, we're desperate. We're desperate. Because we were costing them more in legitimate trade than they were making in illegitimate trade. But guess who called up the governor of Texas, the Chamber of Commerce? Hey, we need our warehouses back full of product, right? So he immediately caved, 4 days. There's a way to shut down the border, but when you let all the money influence it and you don't let us, the people, influence it, that's where you start running into problems. Yeah.
To follow up on that gentleman over there about, contacting people, my experience, first of all, the majority, yes, we do want certain things done, but there is a minority that is in opposition. They seem to get their voices heard better, or our elected officials for some reason pay more attention to them than they do us, which makes me angry because it makes me feel like we who put them there are taking us for granted. So in order for me to get people to get back in touch with me, I've had to email, which I believe they ignore, phone calls, and I've just went old school and started writing letters. So maybe we need to do a letter writing campaign. So I was just going to suggest that we could organize that. I don't like to be overbearing and blow up people's telephones and get in their ear constantly. I guess if we have to do that, we will. But I really would just appreciate it if you get a response, because we're constituents, and when a majority of an elected official's constituents want A and they're going to do B regardless, that is when I start getting to that level where I'll get irritated and agitated, and that's what I had to say.
Yeah, you would think. I just, a journalist from the Washington Post called me yesterday to interview me on the break between the governor and the Georgia GOP. Because it's getting national attention. I say all the time, all eyes are on Georgia, and that's no joke. But really what it boils down to, is what you've said, is that we have this split, and leadership is, unfortunately, more sensitive to what we call the donor class than they are the grassroots. And so, the grassroots basically took over the GOP. And then, as the journalist said, which was pretty funny, and then the governor said, I'm going to take my ball and go play somewhere else. I was like, oh, I like that. Yeah, I think that is what happened. And it's really sad, because the goal of the party is to elect Republicans. That is the goal of the GOP, is to elect Republicans. And so the grassroots, nature abhors a vacuum. So where the donor class or the leadership has stepped out, the grassroots are going to step in. And I can assure you that the grassroots are stepping in. Like Colton said, we burn up airfare and the car, driving all over the state. And you guys are not alone. What is happening in this room is what's happening all over the state. And you know what? It would be great if we got the response we wanted, but we're not. And so, okay, plan B. You guys are fit for the challenge. You were born for this. This is your moment, and we're going to do it all together. And I think it's going to be phenomenal. Yes, sir.
Yes. Rather than speaking in narrative, which you all have done quite well this afternoon, I'd rather speak in facts. Horner was the only Republican to vote against the House rules and how bad they are. In fact, Colton and Byrd voted for both the Senate and the House rules at the start of the legislature. Thirdly, at this point, a lobbyist, who pays you as a lobbyist? You said you're a registered lobbyist.
I work for the State Freedom Caucus Network.
Okay, so that's your line. Understand this. Having participated in politics, especially at the state level, for more than a few years, the governor is elected across the state. Then the House representatives, both in the Senate and the House, move his agenda forward after he consults with them as far as what items he would like to propose for that legislative session. That is the difference between you being a paid lobbyist for a specific group with a specific agenda and people who are actually elected throughout the state of Georgia, meet in committee, and decide what items are going to move forward. Thank you. My question was regarding the fact that she's a paid lobbyist, and that defines...
Pay lobbyists for what we want, right?
No, not for what I want.
Oh, you're not...
So again...
Hey. We're going to have a respectful conversation. We're not going to say sit down and shut up. We're also not going to scream at our speakers. We're done. Thank you.
So just real quick, what I lobby for is lower taxes, less regulation, decreased size of government, and no infringement on your liberties. And that's about the only thing I would lobby for because, sir, you are correct. Lobbyists, it's a dirty business. But thankfully, the Freedom Caucus Network isn't in the dirty business. We're in the business of freedom. So.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify the difference between the House rules and the Senate rules. It's two different sets of rules for two different chambers. I gave a big speech about why I voted for those rules. One of the reasons was it was recognizing the freedom of speech of legislators. Remember, Burt Jones was also going to be number 20 indicted, right? Fonnie Willis shows up in the court with Burt, and Burt says, "You're donating to my political opponent." And he wasn't included in the indictment because it was political persecution. That's all it was. So the Senate rules were established to recognize that senators have essentially speech immunity, that we have the ability to speak on behalf of our citizens and say whatever we like. If we want to question the integrity of an election, we have the ability to do that. What's funny is that Democrats were the ones voting against that type of legislation. I would love for you to watch that video and that speech. If you go to coltonmoore.com, you can go to Moore Report. It'll be episode number 1. Episode number 1, you can watch that speech and see exactly why those rules were good. Yep.
Yes, I was wondering. I was wondering how much power Chris Carr has over Fannie Willis. I mean, I don't hear a thing out of him.
Yeah, he has as much as he wants to use, and that's not very much. Think about this. One of the primary pieces of legislation we ought to be focused on is making sure the Georgia state capitol is sovereign territory of Georgia and not Fulton County. Because any of these charges, any of these indictments ought to be coming from Chris Carr's office. Some rogue district attorney in Fulton County ought not be able to suppress the voice of all of us and all the people of North and South Georgia.
So we need to be putting more pressure on Chris Carr to interfere.
I think it's too late at this point. I think that ship has already sailed. Unfortunately, in his position, nobody was really aware, I guess, that he could have gotten involved earlier on. I mean, this has been going on for 2 years. I don't think anybody in our party really suspected Fani would go through with it. I mean, you look at the Republican Senate caucus, 2 weeks before the indictments come through, the Senate caucus doesn't even have a plan on how to direct anything. And that's what led to the call for a special session. Here comes the indictments. 4 or 5 days later, there's still not one peep out of most of the Republican leadership in our state. And then 2 weeks later, we've got the governor saying Fani Willis has done nothing wrong. I mean, they're completely oblivious to this type of political persecution.
Perfect, thank you.
This gentleman had a question.
No, I think Marv's going to hold off and let me ask a question first. Do you mind yielding to me? Is that okay? Okay. Where's my gentleman, the veteran that was talking right here? Sir? Yes, sir. Who was the one that was just talking a minute ago that was trying to get a hold of your elected official? Just spoke. Is he? Where's he at? Over here. Where? Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll make it easy. We'll do it for anybody. Sir, I like your hat. Do you have your phone on you? You have your cell phone on you? Open it up here real quick. Yeah, no. Listen, okay, here's my question. You told me, you stood up here last Wednesday and you said, I will debate anybody. I have challenged you to a debate, I've challenged you to a debate, and I challenged her to a debate. You got to sit up here and talk your talking points. I'm getting to it. Every time I stand up here, nobody lets me talk. I challenged you to the debate. I wanted you to do it today. Even made an announcement and said, hey, let's do it. But yet you're up here, you talk your talk, you don't give anybody else a chance to talk, Mr. First Amendment, okay? Rhino Wrangler. And then I'm over here and I'm trying to point out some things. I am trying to. He's the Rhino Wrangler, not me, apparently. Okay, but my point is I'm trying to give a substantive debate where you guys can see multiple sides. So here's my one question. You ready? Let's talk about special session. All right, let's talk about it. Because it is a question, but they get 20 minutes to talk, and I'm supposed to ask a question. What? Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. Listen. We are going to let our questioners ask questions, and we are going to please just be respectful to our speakers.
Okay, so here's my question. So we do special session, Mallory. We do special session. We call it, okay? The articles get through the House, all right? Then they go to the Senate. So after that, this is chapters 6, 7, and 8. They don't tell you guys, all right? Chapter 6, 7, and 8 says it goes to the Senate. It does not pass. They do not have the votes. My question is, do you have the votes for this to pass in the Senate?
You only need a majority of votes to amend the budget.
You need 2/3. I ask you a specific question. You're not going to gaslight. I ask a specific question. Can you pass impeachment in the House with 32 votes? Yes or no? Nothing else. Simple question. Yes or no?
No. Guess what? You cannot impeach until you investigate. Okay.
Until articles of impeachment are passed, they go to the Senate. We're not gaslighting. We're not going to gaslight everybody in here.
Until you
yes or no?
investigate
Do you have the votes? Do you have the votes?
You have the votes.
Do you
after
have
you
the
investigate.
votes
We
to
don't have
pass
your
it
vote.
in the Senate?
We don't have your vote.
No, you do not. Thank you. No,
we don't
you do
have
not.
your vote.
No, you do not.
That's right.
You do not.
Because
have it in the Senate.
You don't recognize the
no, that's
situation.
my point. Because, well, I'm trying to.
You did. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm next, right? Could I have everybody's attention, please? I'm the next person to speak. Excuse me. I am going to ask my question. My question is not to those people up there. My question is to the Cherokee County Republican Party. Am I talking too loud? Oh, well, excuse me. I want to make sure that I'm heard because my state representative was just shouted down pretty much. Yes, he was. Listen, I'm a member of the Cherokee County Republican Party. I also serve as a delegate on the 6th District. The only reason why I'm a member of this party is because the 6th District, I'm sorry, I will try to talk lower. The only reason that I...
Hold on. Can you just pull the mic away a little, because it's really blowing the ears, it's blowing the ears out. Just pull the mic away a little bit. Not that far, but yeah.
Okay, is everybody comfortable with the...
No, we
didn't want to interrupt, but
Okay, well, you need me for the recording. Okay, what I am trying to say is this. I'm a member of this organization. I come to their county meetings. I come to a lot of their events. A lot of times, even as a representative, I hardly can get a word in. I served in this party before the current people and the people before them actually took over the Cherokee County Republican Party, okay? The people representing the Cherokee County Republican Party right now, I view as a group that represents the Georgia Republican Assembly, okay? That's who I view these people as. And that's my opinion, but it is. I'm talking about the members of the county committee, the Cherokee County Republican Party.
What's your question?
Why can't you allow my representative to speak without interrupting him? Was you going to answer the question, or are you just going to stare here and look stupid? Thank you.
So I'd like to jump in here real quick. And this is something that I've said ad nauseum since this call for the special session has started by Senator Moore. We do not, in America, whether it's the wars we fight or the legislative challenges that we take on, we do not choose our stance based on a guaranteed successful outcome. We do things because it's the right thing to do. So, Brad, you do not know what the effect would be if we had 8 senators, 10, 15, 12 House members, not the majority needed to call. You cannot say what the political pressure would be on the governor to call for a special session if there were caucuses in both chambers who said, our people want this woman investigated, our constituents, we're going to sign on this letter because what's happening is wrong and we're going to do the right thing. I guarantee you, Charlize did not sign the letter because she felt like she was going to be the first one of 75 to sign it. She signed it because it was the right thing. Colton wrote it because it was the right thing to do. And we have a...
Excuse me. All right, sir, you need to leave. Seriously, you need to leave.
No,
This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable.
we'll give him the fair warning.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to leave. Here, let me just
We've given...
let me read the Republican.
Hey, Marv.
Excuse me. You can either calm down or you can leave. Those are your options.
In case you people don't realize it, I earned the right to speak.
Yes, sir. Let the man stay. Let the man stay.
Hello, Marvin.
Be outside when you're all done if you want to talk.
Hey, Marvin, I'm going to get to rebut this, okay? Finally, because I finally get an opportunity to speak and not have to do it in the form of a question, like it's Jeopardy or something. So, look, here's my thing. I want to talk through the beginning. And now, since I actually get the mic and I can do it, here's the story. I told you, they're telling you chapters 1 through 6, but they're not telling you chapters 7, 8, and 9. This is where things go bad with their idea. This is why I don't support it, okay? So what happens after we go through articles of impeachment? We're going to play. We're playing hypothetical here right now. Okay. So we go through articles of impeachment. It has to. We vote for articles of impeachment. Every Republican in the House votes for it. That's the first step in this process. Then it goes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Charlize. That's exactly how it happens. So no. Why do I every time I talk, you pull the mic out of my hand? Just let me finish. Well, but I don't need the offhand comments. I am. So that's not fair to keep it in the form of a question when they get to make blank statements. But I'm your state representative. So anyway, my point is it gets to the Senate. And I keep trying to tell people this. It gets to the Senate. This is the part they don't tell you. So let me do it. So then it gets to the Senate. You need 2/3 majority vote in the Senate for those impeachment articles to be found guilty, all right? You don't have those votes. You don't, because that would mean Democrats would have to come across the aisle and vote against, or vote for, I'll talk to you about Misha Maynard, but don't interrupt me. Remember, we're supposed to be polite here. So anyway, I know Misha way better than you do. So anyway, then you don't have it. So what happens next? Now all of a sudden, Fani Willis, all over the United States, USA Today, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fani Willis found not guilty. She is now a public celebrity across the United States. Everybody. She has all kind of money coming in. And next thing you do, you've just created the next Stacey Abrams. That's the end of what you're trying to do, and you know it. And we've tried to tell you this over and over again. And yet you still perpetuate a story that you know ends bad. So I think, well hold on a minute. That's what we're supposed to do a debate about. So that's my thing. So again, why do you think it's okay to tell people
what's your solution?
I just said why. That's the predication to a question.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. So the Republican National Committee platform, okay? It says our platform is centered. This isn't the GRA, sir. This is the Republican National Committee. This is nationwide. It says our platform is centered on stimulating economic growth for all Americans, protecting constitutional guaranteed freedoms. That's why you've got every right, sir, to stand here and speak. Absolutely. But what happened in our state? We had people who were questioning the integrity of an election, and now they're going to face the rest of their life in jail. They're going to have to spend $1 million to defend their good name. Sir, you didn't risk your life for our nation. Sure, go ahead. We can hear you, sir. Answer the question.
Not everybody agrees with you, sir. And here is the point. Why not bring everybody in the Republican Party to the table? Why is the Cherokee County Republican Party willing to have you here and speak when who do you represent? Who do you represent?
Freedom-loving Georgians.
3 people in the Congress? Well, I represent we the people also. I do. And I don't need your kind of nonsense, to be quite honest with you. I need
rights.
You, sir, are nonsense. Excuse me.
You're not being respectful.
Hey, people, listen up. We have children here, so let's be a good example for them and conduct ourselves in an appropriate manner. You can talk very calmly. You can make your point very calmly. You are here to ask questions. This is not a debate forum. Some of you other representatives have been invited to a debate. Show up and do your debate then. This is not a debate. Is that clear? All right. All right, so next question.
So, can I ask my question? Thank you. I'm sorry. My name's Donna Gallagher. I have a very practical question, right? So, and this speaks to your point of we need to find candidates, and you need to find candidates as well. And the biggest obstacle of finding candidates is, well, I work, and I have to support my family, and there are good patriots out there. I'm sure you have good patriots too that represent your ideas as well and your solutions. Whoever that your representative there, he strongly advocates a different solution. But practically, unless you're an attorney or a real estate person or maybe a franchise owner, it's hard to get away from your job. You have to support your family. So can you give us some insight of what people do to accommodate the work schedule? Do you have a spouse that works? I know you took a job as a lobbyist. You wanted to stay involved, which is, a valid way to do it. If you have, a strong cause that you're passionate about, that makes sense. That is a solution, to do. But in terms of the elected representatives,
like, can you give me a day in the life? What is the schedule in session, out of session, all weekend calls? I mean, what does it take to run for office, and how do we advise patriots to support themselves? Thank you.
Sure. So when I first ran for state house, I spent $3,500 against a war chest of about $40,000. It was a 10-year incumbent. He was 50 years older than I was, and was able to defeat him. And my last election was about $300,000 spent. I only spent $100,000. Now, where did that $100,000 come from? It came from the Lord Almighty, because I don't know. I mean, it's like, my goodness, I was raising like $10,000 a week. Well, where's it coming from? Well, when you start advocating for the things that we're advocating for in this room, like I tell you, people across the state feel the same way. Now, the day in the life of a senator or a representative, you're in session from January till around March, and it's every day. During the summertime, you've got an opportunity to work and make a living. For me, I've been extremely blessed. Having a job as an auctioneer, I only get to miss. I work for like 4 different auction companies. I only missed like 4 auctions in the first part of the year, so I've been very lucky. The problem is a lot of people don't have that, and it only pays $20,000 a year, right? So you've got a lot of these retired folks. You have a lot of people who are just extremely wealthy and have plenty of employees to take care of all their problems. I mean, you have multimillionaires in the Senate chamber. Some of Georgia's wealthiest individuals are in that Senate. But you also have, you have poor folks too, like me. I'm the only member of the Georgia General Assembly who lives in a single wide trailer, okay? That's me. But if you don't want to run for office, start writing op-eds. Start being an influencer. Okay, you don't necessarily, think about some of the best influencers out there. Ben Shapiro or Glenn Beck or some of these people who are just getting their voices out there. They're influencing politics just as much. Look at Steve Bannon, the War Room, right? Here's a guy who just sits there in front of a camera all day and influences politics. So you don't necessarily have to get elected. I would encourage you to start writing op-eds, start pushing the narrative even more, and recruiting other people to get involved. That's the really cool part about our side right now, is if you go out there, the people who are not in this room today, who are Republicans, who are out at the ball fields or wherever they are on this Saturday, when those people start getting involved, our movement just continues to gain more power.
Okay, we were trying to locate the other microphone.
I've got it right here.
Okay, there it is.
My question's on something else. You see our signs that say paper please? Well, we have been working for 2 years with our Board of Elections and the Board of Commissioners and have gotten nowhere. And no one will take this to Brad Raffensperger, who his involvement in the election is illegal, and the election is illegal. What can you do about that? What is being done about that?
Yeah, the consent decree went right around the legislature with Stacey Abrams. You know what's really wild? You talk about the state of our society. You look at the 8th District fish fry. Okay, people showed up with paper ballot please t-shirts, and law enforcement escorted them out by order of the governor, to my understanding. That's scary. That this man, the governor, is so concerned that someone is going to voice their opinion for paper ballots please at a Republican event. There was a Cuban lady who came outside and was in tears because she said, this is exactly how it started with my ancestors in Cuba. They showed up at the party and they were ran out. Are they Republicans? No. They're Republicans in name only, and that's what we call rhinos.
We have a question that has been phoned in. I'll ask for them. At the last meeting here, you mentioned changing the RICO laws here in Georgia to, and the video shows he said effectively pardon Donald Trump. The word that was used was effectively. It's in the video. The question is more specifics on how that law gets changed.
Okay, so met with Legislative Council last week to start drafting this. And to give you a recap, it's going to be the Stop the Political Persecutions Act. So if you look at RICO, what is RICO? Well, RICO is supposed to go after the mafia. It's supposed to go after organized crime and drug dealers, right? Most states in the union that have a RICO clause, they have a monetary component in it, right? You're making money. You're selling drugs. You're trafficking firearms or whatever it is. But in Georgia, we don't have a monetary component. So that's one aspect, to add a monetary component. And it was very evident that these individuals weren't out to make money. You know, they were questioning the integrity of an election, and now they're being charged with essential treason. But it's going to be a very careful piece of legislation to write, because what we also don't want to happen is we don't want to eliminate the ability to prosecute things like the 2,000 mules, right? Those people who really are the RICO mafia, who were taking these fake ballots and shoving them into drop boxes. But yet the GBI is not investigating them under our governor. Instead, they're, launching inquiries into some of these that have been indicted, right? So you have to draft the legislation in a way that would not prevent those type of people from being charged in the future, but draft it in a way that essentially redefines what RICO is and force Fonnie Willis to immediately drop the charges. Okay, this worked very similar with some cocaine, like I think federally. You see it in the marijuana cases here in Georgia where, marijuana was fully illegal, then we gave 12 reasons why you can have it. Those people who had been charged show up in the court, and the jury has to read on the new law and not the old law. So many of those people got acquitted just because the law changed. So if you change the RICO law, and we could do it during session, then it would be up to the governor to sign it. I mean, the governor could still veto it, but hopefully there's enough pressure on the governor at that point where he's heard about defunding, he's heard about investigating, he realizes there's mutiny, he can't eliminate any more gas taxes to solve our problems, so then he has to sign it. That's my goal. I think that's our solution.
So it's clear we have a party within a party, which is a problem. And I know in Florida, DeSantis got rid of 3 DAs. I don't know how they do that, but is that an option for here in Georgia? And also, people like Chris Carr, who signed the dissent decree that gave us all these drop boxes for Stacey Abrams. How do we hold Carr, Ratzenberger, and Kemp accountable for all this chaos they've caused us?
Yeah, that's what this party within the party is trying to do, is hold them accountable. It's the solution will have to come through the legislature. And the legislature right now is not in session. We're not going to see a session until January. Or what's going to be really funny is when we have the session to redistrict and the governor gives us a gag order and says that we can't talk about Fonnie Willis, we can only talk about the district. So that's likely to happen. That'll be very ironic. Yeah, so.
I just have a simple question. Since the Freedom Caucus is 3 members and y'all support the special session, why hasn't Senator Greg Dolezal, one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus, signed on to the letter for the impeachment, for the special session for Fani Willis?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Greg that. I mean, I think Greg may fall into the category of, may not want to rough up the feathers of Fonnie. That's been a theme amongst a lot of senators. As that was the original plan of the Republican caucus. Well, if we take any action, we're just going to make it harder on our fellow senator, Sean Steele. Sean Steele, what did he do? He participated as an alternate elector. He spent like 26 minutes in a room, right? He was not treasonous. He was just serving as an alternate elector, just like they did in Hawaii. But yet you've got some senators who call themselves Republicans who are legitimately afraid that if they speak out or they take any type of action, that it's going to be worse on that senator. There are some senators who believe themselves to be co-conspirators, and they've begged of me to leave me out of this public debate because they're worried they're going to find themselves in judicial crosshair. So if we as a Republican Party are supposed to protect constitutional freedoms, we literally have a constitutional crisis in our state when you have members of the Republic who are amongst our party who are chilling their voices. They're not representing the 200,000 people that duly elected them to go there because they are worried about their own judicial harm.
Senator Moore, thank you so much for being out here. I think everyone in this room wholeheartedly believes in the Constitution. And our great Lieutenant Governor also believes in the Constitution and the principles behind it. So he recently has been talking about prison reform and looking at some of the worst prisons in our state and addressing the situations in those prisons, because those that are convicted of crime still have a 8th Amendment right to cruel and unusual punishment. So what is your take on improving the prison systems in our state, possibly even using taxpayer dollars to improve the prison systems in our state, and making sure that people convicted of crimes have the ability to at least have a humane punishment?
Absolutely. Think about Fulton County right now, right? You've got people who the police have brought into the jail and said, you've had a crime. Some of those people may be innocent. You know, we hope that they're all guilty if they've been brought into a jail. The problem is Fonnie Willis has got this backlog of cases to the tune of, I think, plus 500 now. You literally had somebody die in the prison of bed bugs who had yet to... 7,500. Wow. 7,500. Think about this. You have one district attorney in Fulton County right now with about 200 cases and one public defender. Tell me where there's justice for those 200 people. If everybody's lined up in a line, and this is, you see it exactly with this 18 indicted, they face a peril. You're going to spend 30 years in jail. Or you can sign this little plea deal right here, and we're only going to give you, 10 years probation, and you pay this little fine. So guilty people who have done crimes are getting by with not the full extent of the punishment because we've got so many people crammed in the judicial system that they just accept the plea deal. Meanwhile, you have somebody innocent who shows up in that line of people, and they face the peril of, well, if I'm found guilty, I'm going to spend 30 years in jail. Well, I'll just take the plea deal too, right? So you have innocent people who are facing justice they don't deserve, and you have guilty people not getting the justice that they deserve. And meanwhile, we have a district attorney who is taking on political prisoners and using that system to their advantage. You know, Democrats always champion themselves on criminal justice reform. But they are using the problems in our Georgia criminal justice system to target Republicans and make political prisoners. And that's extremely dangerous. You know, the Republicans are saying, well, we've got this prosecutorial commission that's going to take care of things. The Senate leadership shows up and does a press conference about how they filed complaints in this prosecutorial commission. But they do it 5 days after the prosecutorial commission releases a letter that says that their rules have been established, but the Supreme Court hasn't given them constitutionality yet, and they're not going to take on any cases until the Supreme Court rules that way. So they essentially fired off a warning shot to all district attorneys across the state and said, all of your previous sins, they're forgiven. We're only going to take cases after the Supreme Court rules. So the prosecutorial commission is basically saying, we're not going after Fonnie. And to the legislators who say that's our only hope, I say, how did the prosecutorial commission even come into existence? The legislature created it. And the legislature can't create something and give it power if it doesn't inherently have the power itself. Yes, sir.
Mine's for Mallory. And welcome to Cherokee County.
Thank you.
I'm Vice Chair Communications, so I'm going to send out the Georgia Freedom Caucus Substack invite to everybody here in the county. Yep, you bet. The thing that I think a lot of people in the county want to do right now is put a cap on the amount that your property tax can be increased, the value of your home can be increased. People have been getting 30% year over year, and their taxes are, going up. I've attempted to reach out to some, of my legislators to get a bill started. But I'm not getting calls back. What would be your advice for somebody that wants to get legislation like that going?
I think you need a sit-down meeting would be the next request, is if you're not getting responses via phone call and emails like, hey, I want to meet with you. That would be my next step. And that's funny, having left Fulton, where we have super high taxes, and moving into Cherokee, I don't remember what event we were at, Charlie's, maybe the Cherokee Women's event, but and the sheriff was there, and there was a lot of debate going on because they had just announced the increase in taxes, and it was the first increase I think Cherokee's had in a fairly long time on property taxes. Like, that was the argument that was made, and I thought they were having tons and tons of people filing to say, no, hold on a second. And I thought, dadgummit, I just got here just in time for this massive property tax increase. But I would love to fight that with you. So if you want to connect on a personal level with me, I'd be happy to take those meetings with you, and we can sit down and see what we can get done for the good people of Cherokee County. Carter Barrett.
Hey.
Oh, will you send me what y'all wrote?
Just so you know, we're actually working on that.
I'll get
this
that
is a
from
local
Carter.
delegate. This is actually a question really more directed to me. So this is just to answer his question. It's a direct answer to his question. So, hey, listen, we have legislation. We're drafting it. It's local legislation that addresses the issue that you're talking about. And you feel free to contact me. If you get on electbradthomas.com, the cell phone pops up, calls this phone right here. Okay?
My name is Jim Bradshaw. I'm chairman of the Bridge Mill Precinct. Okay. And my question, other than the issue of having a felony hanging over your head as an attorney, what's your take on why the settlements for the last two people that were indicted?
Yeah, I talked about that earlier with the peril that you're facing, right? If Sidney Powell's already spent, $500,000 and she's facing, 10, 20 years in jail, but she can take this probation deal and she can pay a $5,000 fine and she can be adjudicated and remove herself from the situation. And then it looks really good for the Democrats because they publish in the paper, oh, look, Sidney Powell, she just had this little $5,000 fine, and she's going to agree to testify against Trump. But meanwhile, they don't report on the fact that she's had to, essentially sell her house to pay the legal fees, right? So the process is in the punishment, and it's like, death by 1,000 cuts, essentially. So, that was the whole initial prosecutorial plan. Is like the Bell's bondsman was the first guy to take like a $5,000 plea, right, and agree to testify. So they took the people. Look at the wealth gap in between those indicted. Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, we've got a real problem with the judicial system, and we need to fix it. It's broken.
No doubt about it.
I want to compliment you on the fact that you follow what's right rather than what may happen later on if you do what's right. So stick with what's right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey guys, Mitchell, Representative Mitchell Horner. I'm actually from Colton's part of the state. I appreciate you guys coming. Appreciate everybody for letting me speak for a second. I actually wasn't going to, but then I saw the contention in the room, and it pulled on my heart, and I just want to ask you guys, but also kind of make a statement. Sorry, I'm terrible with microphones, so I already had to apologize for that. I was really here more for moral support for my fellow state reps, and just to say hi to everybody. And we were going to see some family today, so I said might as well stop by. But that being said, I see a serious contention going on that's being caused by not only this one issue, but also these tactics that are coming from these organizations. And so, simply put, from my district, Colton's district, in my district, I can literally count on one hand how many people are concerned about this issue. Well, we have serious concerns of corruption in our county, and Colton was the one that beat the corruption, but we're still fighting that fight. We have a property tax increase that we're fighting. We have serious issues that we're fighting that we are now getting gagged on because of the state Senate. And so 25 state senators basically said, this isn't going to happen. So regardless of whatever anybody agrees in this room, whatever pressure y'all put, it will not happen. And I'm not here to say it. As a representative, it tugs on my heart to make sure to tell you guys that we have to give realistic expectations to you guys. We just can't tell y'all everything we want. I would love nothing more to see Fani Willis in jail. I do believe y'all's points. It's not about the different opinions or disagreements on a Republican platform. We agree on 99.9% of the platform. It's just the tactics. The tactics are driving this Republican Party into a massive, in my opinion, electoral defeat. Yes. We are driving people to literally the establishment. So my question is, how do we bridge that gap, guys? Like, we are providing solution. Absolutely. So solutions are in my opinion, this is the problem. We have 180 state reps, right? So you have to get 91 on board. Well, unfortunately, 10 of those come from Fulton County. So in my way, and this is my opinion, there's one solution. You go against the county chairs that hold Fulton County's actual DA budget. We only hold 10% of the DA budget. So why doesn't the Fulton County Commissioners, which are in Buckhead, which are in South Fulton, that actually are seeing what Colton's actually saying, which is there is massive crime that's getting held down in Fulton County because of this horrendous political case. Well, why do we not go against the county commissioners? Yes, the House has legislative authority to do it, but we do not have the votes. We will not have the votes. We can send it to the Senate, but the Senate's not going to impeach them. And they are right. It will cause a massive political figure to rise on the Democratic platform that can beat us. And so that's what I'm saying. So, absolutely, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of discussion here. The problem is there isn't a true solution. We can give a hypothetical. They can give a hypothetical. But there's not a... The problem is, then this is my concern, is we're all talking hypotheticals. I mean, to be fair, we are. We would all love the same outcome. That's my question. I kind of already asked it, but I'll reiterate it. The problem is these tactics aren't working. They're not going to work. Because what happens when you step on people's toes continuously, regardless of I promise you, at a point, this isn't about politics anymore. They're just getting mad that you're showing up at their houses. And this isn't coming from me. Again, I've only had 5 of my constituents say something. And well, we say that, but they don't have the votes. I mean, that's Fulton County.
Yeah, if we can't get your vote, Mitchell, then we need to find somebody else who will vote.
And that's what I'm saying. See, and that's what I'm saying. You're causing a bigger rift, even on our district. That's causing people to drive to the other
People
side.
expect their representatives and their senators to do their job.
And when I have 5 people out of 60,000 people call me and say, this is my main concern, or this is a concern at all, from one social group. See, this is our problem too. We're in social bubbles. This is one social bubble. The state, I'm sure your school board is its own social bubble. And that you have to, as a representative, you have to represent all these social bubbles. Yes, I fully agree with y'all's platform. I fully vote y'all's platform. But the problem is, y'all also have to represent other social bubbles. And so when you only get 5 people from the same social bubble saying this is a problem, I'm like, I agree, but there's 3 other social bubbles over here that's saying they don't see it as a problem, so don't touch it.
So if I can jump in, what you said isn't factually correct, that nobody cares about this, because there was a Rasmussen poll that showed that the overwhelming majority of Republicans, and interestingly, Democrats and independents as well, feel like this is political persecution, it's an infringement on First Amendment rights, and they are gravely concerned about it. So the data's in on that. As far as political pockets, you have Alan Dershowitz, who's a leading never-Trumper, crazy liberal Democrat, leading legal mind, saying this is what is happening in Georgia is the greatest constitutional crisis that our country's seen in 200 years. So this issue, freedom of speech and due process, actually transcends the party. It transcends the platforms, and it is absolutely fundamental to who we are as Americans, which is why it's soliciting the response across the state and the country that it is.
So thank you all very much for all the very pointed questions. I do want to be respectful of our speakers. I was told that we have a hard stop. We are now beyond that hard stop. So I'm not going to shut down the debate, but I'm also not going to fault them for. I'm not going to fault them for saying we have to go. So I'll give you all a closing word if you want it, or you can keep answering questions. It's up to y'all. But just I wanted to make everyone aware that I probably should have, and I apologize for that. I probably should have said earlier on, hey, we have a hard stop. But here we go. I'm just gonna let them say one more quick word.
Let her ask her question.
Go ahead.
I have a question, Mallory. What was your answer given to you when things were changed and how things are done and how they no longer follow the Republican platform? I'd like to know an answer why that happened.
Yeah, so Melvin didn't attest to the inflection point at which that deviation was made from the Republican platform, but it's clear that it has, and I think that's an excellent question because you have to get to the source and the heart of the matter. But I know that a lot of times what happens is we have districts that you can't win as a Democrat, and you have to run as a Republican, and I hear this from all over the state, is they think that their representatives, which the voting records would reflect that, really hold the view and the beliefs of a Democrat, but they're running as a Republican to win in that particular district. So again, I'm not a political science major, but I would think that would be an attributing factor. There's probably multiple ones, and that is something that needs to be figured out to fix it, to fix the problem. So yeah, I'm sorry, Colton and I, we do have I'm going to let him speak last, but we are heading down to the District 2 fish fry where we are both speaking. So we have about a 5-hour drive on our hands. So I'm going to let him wrap up, and then we're going to hit the road.
Yeah, to answer your question, you can go buy some tea, right? And you may see a representative and they look like a really conservative brand of tea, but until the hot water of the Capitol hits that bag of tea, you don't really know what it's going to taste like. Okay?
No, I was just going to say that evil triumphs when good men do nothing. And if we don't have just our basic First Amendment right that is right at the top, then it's like nothing else. I mean, then how do you work down?
Yes, you're correct. Not wrong. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all again very much for being here. Thank you, Mallory. Thank you, Senator Moore.